Recording. Origin Site Index Room. Hannah is back. She brought water and something wrapped in paper from a shop down the coast road. We've been in this building most of 2 days now. The light through the narrow windows says it's late afternoon again. I told her what was in O'Connor's document while she was eating. The pulse he described from 1917, the device interpretation, the correspondent thread in the final line. She listened without interrupting, which is unusual for her. She normally pushes back on interpretations before I finish stating them. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, and then she said, "Read me the last page again." I did. She said, "The condition. He uses that word deliberately." I said I thought so too. She said, "A condition is a requirement, not an observation." He's saying hearing the pulse is not incidental to what they are. It's the prerequisite for something else. We sat with that for a while. Then she looked at the document on the table and said, "The missing pages. That's what we need to find." The objective is to determine who removed pages 3 and 4 from O'Connor's log, and whether those pages still exist somewhere in the network. I told Hannah what I found when I examined the binding, the pamphlet stitch, the nested sheet extraction, the compression mark that reads as recent. She wanted to look at the binding herself before we went further. I gave her the document. She examined it the way she examines everything, methodically, without rushing, starting from the outside and working inward. She looked at the cover page first, ran her finger along the top margin, then the first stitch hole, the second, the third. She held the document up to the window light and looked at it from the side, a flat angle, the way you check for surface irregularities. She said, "The stitching is original. One thread, continuous, no repairs." I said, "Yes, that's what I found." She said, "But the thread at the second hole is slightly looser than the first and third. Not much, just enough." She handed it back to me. The nested sheet was extracted carefully, but not perfectly. Whoever did it slightly disturbed the tension at the center hole. I looked. She was right. The thread at the second hole sits marginally higher than the thread at the first and third. A millimeter, maybe less. The kind of detail you would only find if you were looking for it, or if you had done this kind of extraction yourself and knew what to look for. I asked her how she knew what to look for. She said, "I've removed pages from bound documents before. In 1987, at a node I'm not going to describe right now, I needed to extract material without leaving visible damage. I know what the attempt looks like." She said it matter-of-factly, not as a confession, as a technical statement. I'm recording it as she said it and not pursuing it further right now, because there are more immediate questions, and because Hannah shares what she shares when she's ready to share it. I took the blinking device out. The device has been consistent at 2 seconds since we returned from the headland with the pre-registry card. 2 seconds in this room, 2 seconds when I'm holding the document, 2 seconds when I face northeast toward the collapsed structure. I've normalized it, but I wanted to see if a closer examination of specific parts of the document would produce a different reading. I held the device near the cover page. 2 seconds. Near page 1. 2 seconds. Near the gap where pages 3 and 4 should be, the empty space in the binding between pages 2 and 5. I held the device as close as I could to the physical absence of the missing pages. For a moment, nothing changed. Then the interval dropped. 1.5 seconds. The same reading as the name on the pre-registry card. The same reading I got when the camera lens came within a few centimeters of the entry above mine on the list. The device is reacting to the absence or to whatever the missing pages contained. Or, and this is the interpretation I don't know how to hold yet, to whoever touched those pages last. Hannah was watching. She said, "Do the binding." I moved the device to the spine of the document, to the stitch holes, to the area where the pamphlet thread runs through all the pages together. The interval stayed at 2 seconds along the spine. Then when I reached the center stitch hole, the one Hannah identified as slightly disturbed. It dropped again. 1.5 seconds. Exactly. I looked at Hannah. She said the binding carries the contact signature of whoever assembled it. I asked her what that meant. She said, the device responds to archive material that has been significantly handled by someone the system considers relevant. That's been our working interpretation for 2 seasons. The device doesn't ignore the material. It reads the history of contact embedded in it. The center hole was touched more recently than the others by whoever extracted the pages. The device is reading that contact. I said, so the device can tell us who handled what. She said, it can tell us that whoever extracted those pages is someone the system considers significant. At 1.5 seconds, not just significant, highly significant. The same reading as the pre-registry card itself. I put the device down on the table and looked at the document. The pages were not removed by someone peripheral to this investigation. They were removed by someone the archive tracks as highly relevant, someone the system would give a slot in this index room. I said, the slot above mine, the empty one, the name we haven't said out loud yet. Hannah said, yes, we need the missing pages. That's the next step, and we both know it. The question is where they are. I went through the logic. The pages were extracted from the document and taken. They weren't destroyed. The compression mark in the binding is clean, the kind of mark a folded sheet makes when it's removed intact. The pages exist somewhere. They were removed for a reason, which means they contain something the extractor didn't want left in the document, or something they wanted to keep, or something they were keeping safe. I described the paper stock to Hannah while I was looking at the edges of page 2, the last page before the gap, the stock of O'Connor's pages. Heavier than standard, cream-colored, with a slight texture on the surface that I'd noticed when I first unfolded the document. A specific paper. Not common. Hannah had gone very still on the other side of the table. She said, describe it again. I did. The weight, the color, the surface texture, a slight tooth to it, the kind of finish that takes ink evenly and holds it without bleeding. Hannah reached into her bag and took out her notebook. Not to write in it, to look at a specific page near the back. Notes from season 2. She was flipping through them, finding something. She stopped at a page. She read it silently. Then she looked up. She said, in season 2, when we found the 1994 unprocessed archive box, before we found the catalog cards, there were sealed envelopes and wrapped objects. We didn't open them. We found the Keller, Carter, and Velasquez cards, and we moved on. I said I remembered. She turned her notebook toward me. Her season 2 notes, a description of the sealed envelopes she'd written at the time. Paper type, seal condition, approximate age. The paper description, heavy stock, cream-colored, slight tooth. She looked at me. We left them there. I'm recording this next part carefully because I want the sequence documented accurately. The 1994 archive box. We found it in season 2 at a municipal records repository, a building we accessed as part of the Rook investigation thread, cross-referencing the survey report. The box was unlabeled, unprocessed, set aside as though it had arrived and never been cataloged. The 3 catalog cards we found in it, Keller, Carter, Velasquez, were loose inside, not in envelopes. The sealed envelopes were in a separate compartment. We looked at them. We didn't open them. We moved on because the catalog cards seemed more immediately relevant, and we were mid-investigation, and time was a factor. I have thought about those envelopes several times since season 2, and each time I have noted them as an open thread and moved on. They have been sitting in that repository for 2 years of our investigation. Longer before that, the box was labeled 1994, which means the envelopes have been in that building for at least 30 years. The paper stock matches O'Connor's document, which creates a problem with the timeline. The pages were extracted recently. The compression mark told us that. But if they're in those envelopes, they've been there for decades. Either the pages were placed there long before the extraction occurred, which makes no sense, or someone has been to that repository since we were last there. Someone who knew what was in the envelopes and what was in the document and understood the connection between them. The missing pages from O'Connor's log, pages 3 and 4, extracted recently, by someone the device reads at 1.5 seconds, by someone whose slot in this index room is empty, may be in one of those envelopes. Or the envelopes contain something else entirely that we should have opened 2 seasons ago. Either way, we need to go back. Hannah is already closing her notebook. She's looking at the window, the late afternoon light, the angle of it. She's calculating travel time. I know that look. She said, if we leave now, we can be there before it closes. The recorder is going in my coat pocket. We're leaving the origin site.